It was supposed to be a regular afternoon. Anna, a humble, soft-spoken woman in her mid-30s, walked into the flashy glass doors of an upscale car dealership. She wasn't wearing designer clothes or flashy jewelry, just a plain dress, her hair in a simple bun, and a warm smile that didn't quite fit the luxury showroom around her. She wasn't there to impress anyone. She just wanted to surprise her husband with a car he'd been dreaming of since college. But from the moment she stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. Salesmen whispered, side-eye glances followed her every move, and no one approached to offer help. When she finally asked about a car, the response was cold, almost mocking. One employee even laughed and said, "This isn't a charity, ma'am." Moments later, she was escorted out like she didn't belong there. Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, not just from being turned away, but from being treated like she was invisible. What the staff didn't know, what they didn't even bother to ask, was who Anna really was. And more importantly, who she was married to. The very next day, the dealership would get a surprise visit. But this time, not from the quiet woman in a simple dress. No, this visit came with tinted black SUVs, security detail, and a man whose name alone could shut down the whole building if he wanted. Her husband, a man they never saw coming. What happens next will leave everyone stunned, and those who judged her, wishing they had shown just a little more kindness. Anna hadn't always lived in a world of wealth. She grew up in a small town, raised by hardworking parents who taught her the value of kindness, humility, and patience. Even after marrying Daniel Hayes, a quiet, brilliant man who would later become one of the most successful tech entrepreneurs in the country, Anna never changed who she was. She still did her own grocery shopping, still greeted people with a smile, and never flaunted the fortune she now shared with her husband. Daniel, despite being a billionaire, preferred to keep a low profile. He wore jeans and sneakers to business meetings and drove a modest car most days. He loved how grounded Anna was. To him, she wasn't just his wife, she was his anchor, the reason he kept going when business got tough. And when Anna told him what happened at the dealership, he didn't get loud. He didn't even look angry. He just nodded once and quietly picked up his phone. What the dealership didn't know was that Daniel had been eyeing them for a possible investment. They were struggling behind the scenes, numbers down, management sloppy, but Daniel saw potential. Until now, what had been a business opportunity had suddenly become personal. Meanwhile, at the dealership, the staff laughed off the previous day's events. They had no idea who Anna really was. To them, she was just another nobody wasting time in a place meant for serious buyers. But that was about to change. By the next morning, luxury cars rolled up to the dealership. Men in sharp suits stepped out first, followed by someone they didn't recognize, until the cameras started clicking. The staff stood frozen as a tall man in a tailored coat walked through the doors and asked to speak with the manager. Inside the dealership, the atmosphere shifted the moment Daniel walked in. His calm but firm presence sent an unspoken message. This wasn't just any customer. The staff who had dismissed Anna the day before watched him closely, their smiles forced, suddenly unsure of themselves. The manager, a man named Steve, stepped forward, trying to mask his confusion with charm. "Good morning, sir. How can we help you today?" Daniel didn't smile. "I believe one of your employees made a mistake yesterday. My wife came here to buy a car. She was turned away." His voice was low, steady, but carried enough weight to make the room go still. Steve blinked, glancing around at his team. No one said a word. He had no idea who Anna was, no clue that the quiet woman they had brushed off was married to the very man who could make or break their future. Back in her car, parked down the street, Anna sat watching through the windshield. She hadn't wanted to come, but Daniel insisted. "You need to see this," he told her. Still, a part of her wasn't sure. She didn't like causing scenes. But this wasn't about revenge. It was about respect, about being seen. Inside, a young trainee named Louis stood silently in the corner. He had been the only one who hesitated yesterday when Anna was dismissed. He didn't agree with how they treated her, but he'd been too scared to speak up. Now, as he watched the scene unfold, he felt a knot forming in his chest. Maybe this was his moment to do something right. Daniel scanned the room, his gaze landing on each employee. "Before we go any further," he said, pausing, "I'd like to know, who made the decision to kick my wife out yesterday?" No one answered. The silence inside the dealership was heavy. No one dared to speak, eyes shifting, hands fidgeting. The sleek cars that once gave the place a feeling of power and prestige now seemed like background noise. The tension in the air was thicker than ever. Daniel remained calm, but his presence alone was enough to make the entire staff uneasy. Steve cleared his throat, trying to recover. "There must be some misunderstanding, sir. We treat all our customers with the utmost respect." But even he didn't believe his own words. He was stalling, hoping the moment would pass. Daniel didn't budge. She was ignored, mocked, laughed at, and finally asked to leave. "I want names." Still, no one spoke. From the corner, Louis took a shaky breath. His heart was pounding, but he couldn't stay quiet anymore. "Sir, I was here. I saw it happen," he said, stepping forward. "It was Mike. He called her a joke, told her to leave." Every head turned sharply toward the salesman standing near the back, tall, slick-haired, with a confident smirk that had suddenly disappeared. Mike's face went pale. "I didn't mean anything by it," he muttered, trying to shrug it off. "She didn't look like she could afford anything here. I was just being real." That one sentence echoed through the room. No apology, no shame, just an excuse wrapped in arrogance. Daniel turned slightly, his jaw tightening. And that's exactly the problem. Outside, more black cars had arrived. A few bystanders had begun gathering near the entrance, curious about what was happening. Even a local news crew showed up, tipped off by someone who recognized Daniel. Cameras were rolling. The manager's phone buzzed. His regional director had just found out who Daniel was. And the message was clear. Asterisk, fix this. Fast asterisk. But it was already too late. Just as the tension reached its peak, the sound of heavy doors swinging open snapped everyone's attention to the back of the showroom. A woman in a sharp navy suit walked in, her heels clicking confidently against the polished floor. She wasn't part of the staff. No one had seen her before. She moved with authority, holding a leather folder, and went straight to Steve. "I'm Vanessa Lee," she said crisply. "Legal counsel for Mr. Hayes." Steve's face drained of color. Legal counsel. Daniel finally turned toward her, giving the slightest nod. "Thanks for coming on short notice." Vanessa opened the folder and began placing documents on the desk. Contracts, shareholder data, and something that made Steve's hands tremble, an offer letter. It was dated 2 weeks prior. Daniel had already started paperwork to acquire the struggling dealership chain, quietly. No one here knew they were about to become part of his growing portfolio. But that wasn't the twist. Louis, still standing to the side, looked confused. "Wait, are you saying he was already buying the dealership?" Daniel looked at him. "I was. But now I'm reconsidering the terms." The team didn't know what that meant, not yet. But then Vanessa spoke again, her voice sharp. "If the acquisition proceeds, we'll be restructuring. That includes staff evaluations, pending terminations, and a full public review of customer treatment policies." Before anyone could respond, Anna quietly stepped into the room. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. That's when Mike lost his cool. "So what, you're going to ruin our careers because your wife felt embarrassed?" The room went dead silent. Daniel slowly walked toward him. "No," he said. "You did that yourself." And just then, someone from the news crew stepped forward, mic extended. "Mr. Hayes, care to comment on what's happening here today?" He looked at the camera, then back at Anna. "Not yet." And the room waited, breath held, because whatever came next, it wasn't going to be small. The room stood frozen. Eyes flicked between Daniel, Anna, and the documents now spread across the desk like evidence in a courtroom. The weight of what was happening began to sink in. This wasn't just about a bad customer service moment anymore. This was a full-blown reckoning. Daniel turned to the news crew. "This isn't about revenge," he said calmly. "It's about accountability. My wife came here with nothing but kindness and was treated like she didn't matter. That happens to people every day in places just like this." His voice remained steady, but there was no mistaking the emotion behind it. Anna stood beside him now, her presence quiet but powerful. She didn't need to say anything. Her story had already been told, not through words, but through the way the room had treated her before they knew her name. Steve, the manager, stepped forward, sweating through his collar. "We'll fix this. We'll retrain the staff, issue a public apology." But Daniel raised a hand. "You had your chance." Then came the final blow. Vanessa slid a final document onto the desk. "Effective immediately," she said, "ownership of this dealership, and 5 others in the region, has transferred to Hayes Enterprises." The staff gasped. Mike took a step back, eyes wide. "Wait, 5 others?" Daniel nodded. "You see, this wasn't the only location with complaints. We were already investigating. What happened to my wife only confirmed what we suspected. And then, the twist no one saw coming." He turned to Louis. "There was one employee who didn't go along with it. One person who stood up and told the truth today." He held out a card. "I'd like you to consider a new position, head of customer experience, across all 6 locations." Louis blinked, stunned. "Me?" Daniel smiled, just slightly. "You earned it." And just like that, the balance of power shifted. The news clip of Daniel's quiet but powerful takedown of the dealership went viral within hours. People across the country shared the story, not just because a billionaire had exposed a company, but because it reminded everyone that kindness matters and assumptions can cost more than money. The phrase **you did that yourself** became a trending quote, a reminder that how we treat others is everything about who we really are. Louis accepted the offer, and within weeks, he began working directly with Hayes Enterprises. He brought fresh ideas, led honest conversations with staff, and helped rebuild trust in each dealership. His story, from quiet trainee to leadership, became a symbol of integrity. He never forgot the moment he chose to speak up, and how that one choice changed everything. As for Anna, she never sought attention. She didn't need the spotlight or praise. All she wanted was to make a kind gesture for her husband. In the end, her quiet strength was what truly shifted the story. She went back to her simple life, walking her dog in the park, picking out flowers from her favorite vendor, and smiling at strangers who now recognized her from a screen. She never changed, even though the world around her had. Daniel continued to grow his business, but more thoughtfully. That moment reminded him that success means nothing if the people around you forget how to treat others. He made a point to invest in not just buildings, but in people who led with heart. In the end, the message was clear: never judge someone by what they wear, how they speak, or what they seem to have. Because sometimes the quietest person in the room holds the biggest story, and sometimes that story changes everything.